How's it going, everybody? Chaotic Meatball here with Beastcoast Pokemon, and welcome to my attempt at a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Sword and Shield using only original form Pokemon. Now that might sound really generic, but that's because this is a part 2 of a video on my channel where I attempted a similar Nuzlocke, but with the Galarian regional variants. I'd suggest watching that first if you haven't already, but this time around I want to see if the original versions of these Pokemon can stack up to the newbies. Can they manage to power through this game, or will they be left in the dust by their power-crept counterparts? Only one way to find out. Rules are in the description, and with one additional rule that applies to only Sword and Shield, and that's no Dynamax, no Gigantamax. We don't validate this game's dumb gimmick here, therefore it's banned just like it should have been in VGC. With that being said, we've got a few decent encounters on our hands. Linoon, Persian, Rapidash, Mr. Mime, Coffagrigus, Weezing, Slowbro, Slowking, Stunfisk, and Corsola are all available to me. A perfect 10 encounters with a lot of leaning towards the normal and psychic typings. Will they be enough though? Well, let's find out. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, throw a like and a comment down below for some ideas of challenges you'd like to see on this channel in the future, maybe even try to get the rest of the Beastcoast crew on board. So what fights are we going to have to deal with in this run? Well, there's 28 total major fights in the run in order from our first encounter. We've got Hop 2, Hop 3, Bead 1, Milo, Hop 4, Nessa, Bead 2, Marnie 1, Kabu, Hop 5, Allister, Bead 3, Opal, Hop 6, Melony, Hop 7, Marnie 2, Piers, Raihan, and then into the Champions Cup Marnie 3, Hop 8, Oleana, Bead 4, Nessa 2, Allister 2, Raihan 2, Chairman Rose, and of course the most threatening of them all, Leon. And since this is a part 2 of sorts, I'm just going to go rapid fire through these, since you kinda already know how the game goes. Our first encounter lies just beyond the first rival battle over on Route 2 in Zigzagoon, and this is much less worthwhile of an encounter in this run due to the lack of Obstagoon, but Linoon should still remain pretty powerful until late game due to its access to powerful physical moves like Body Slam, Seed Bomb, and Gunk Shot. After EV training it in speed up to level 13, Hop's ready to fight again, but doesn't land a single attack on me as Headbutt one-shots Wooloo, then two-shots Score Bunny after getting a flinch on the first, finishing off with Rookidee to win. Not bad, but what about the next battle with him after the Wild Area and Gym Ceremony? Well, thanks to the addition of Meowth from the Dusty Bowl and Ponyta from the Bridge Field to the team in the Wild Area, it shouldn't be too bad. Of course, I also grabbed Mr. Mime, Yamask, and Coughing so that they can sit in the box until I'm allowed to draft them in, seeing as I'm only going to be adding one Pokemon per gym badge. The reason I add 2 here is because Meowth is available on Route 4, so technically I can obtain it before the first gym without the Wild Area. I'm making arbitrary rules because I can. The assistance of TRs being infinitely obtainable through advancing the clock forward for infinite watt generation also helps, as we're able to optimize our Pokemon's movesets for every situation, including for this fight. He leads Wooloo once more as I go for Meowth, setting up 3 nasty plots and taking Tackle, Growl, and one more Tackle before sweeping. Thunderbolt to Wooloo, Shadow Ball to Score Bunny, and Shadow Ball to Rookidee to seal the deal. TRs are broken, nothing more to be said. Turffield Stadium is the next destination, but not before Bead interrupts us at the end of the Galar Mine. Now, this fight is not too difficult for us to handle thanks to Meowth getting Shadow Ball, but let's see if I can execute the sweep just as effectively. He leads with Solosis, having Confusion and Endeavor, but of course, despite the fact that I only need one Shadow Ball to KO his whole team after a nasty plot, he manages to confuse Meowth on the first Confusion, disrupting my plans completely. Well, okay, plan B I guess, and that's Unga Bunga with Ponyta and Zigzagoon. It's got some decent bulk for an unevolved Mon with Ponyta, taking out the likes of Solosis through 2 Confusions with a Flamethrower and Flame Charge, doing the same to Gothita with a Flamethrower and High Horsepower through a Tickle that lowers my attack and defense. This leads to his last Pokemon in Hatenna, and I figured I could get off one more High Horsepower before not having enough HP to continue, and surely enough that works, though it does less than half. All I've got to do though is blank one attack by swapping into Zigzagoon, and due to the speed advantage, I'm able to use Body Slam for the KO and the win. Well, that was a little rough, probably could have prevented that by grabbing a Persim Berry from the Wild Area's berry trees, but we live and we learn, I suppose. Just ahead is the Turffield Stadium though, the home of Milo and the Grass Badge. Ponyta should make quick work of this, but Linoon is also a perfect Pokemon for the job thanks to getting to level 20 and evolving right at the level cap. By holding a Citrus Berry and using 6 workups, I'm able to get enough power behind Body Slam to KO his Gossifleur, then do the same with his Dynamaxed Eldegoss to win the fight. Easy as pie, nothing to it. Of course, before we can enter Hulbury for our fight against Nessa, Hop wants another bite out of the future champ, so of course we oblige by committing homicide against his team. He leads Wooloo for the 3rd time in a row, and despite having double kick, it just never seems to use it other than exactly 1 time. So I just set up workup with Linoon, eventually getting 5 of them off in order to sweep his Wooloo, Corvusquire, and Raboot with 1 Body Slam apiece to win. Sorry buddy, it's just not your day. In fact, it'll never be your day, and you'll remain worthless for the rest of your existence. With that depressing fact out of the way, though, I'm able to move into the battle with Nessa, and thanks to Mr. Mime joining the team with Thunderbolt, I'm able to crack her Goldeen and Arrokuda with 1 Thunderbolt apiece before Dreadnought comes out. It Dynamaxes, but goes down to 2 Thunderbolts despite, using Max Geyser and Max Darkness, but because both are special moves and Mr. Mime just so happens to have a pretty sizable special defense, it just soaks them both up before KOing it. I'm sure I could have done that a little more effectively by using Linoon and Seed Bomb for a quad super effective attack, but hey, why not give some other Pokemon some screen time? Speaking of screen time, Bede wants some more, but thanks to a new badge in my hands, I can add Yamask to the team, holding leftovers and alternating both Protect and Calm Mind to keep recovering while setting up. Though Psyshock from Solosis is just bypassing the special defense increases I'm doing, so after 3 Calm Minds, I'm able to just start Shadow Balling, one-shotting Solosis, but then Gothita outspeeds and nails a, albeit pathetic Psyshock, but still it outsped and had me worried for a second. It goes down, then Hatena comes out 3rd, and then goes down to Shadow Ball, but he's got a new addition in Ponyta, and it's gone. After chasing Kabu back to his gym, we can head back into Motostoke, but Marnie is waiting for a battle in the Badoo Drop Inn before our gym battle can take place, so let's pummel her. She's rocking Dark types, but those are pretty easy to take down thanks to my Fairy type Mr. Mime and my Linoon, though the latter just body slams everything, KOing Krogunk in 1 shot, Scraggy in 2, and Morpeko in 2 without using a single workup. I don't think I can manage much else than a sorry. It's kinda gotta be demoralizing to watch your entire team of Pokemon be body slammed by a weird linear possum thing, but I digress. But since we have Galar Mine number 2 in the books, I actually had access to Stunfisk, so I can also bring this in to have a full team of 6 against Kabu. He's running Ninetales as his lead, but I can easily bypass this thing by using Mr. Mime and Calm Mind, so I can protect against all of his special moves outside of Quick Attack, which is non-stab, so I'm not worried about it. By alternating that with Protect while holding leftovers, though, I can get to +6 special attack and special defense pretty quickly, and without losing too much HP. However, Will-O-Wisp is still a threat, and that's exactly what Baton Pass is for. Will-O-Wisp does manage to hit late into the chain, but we've got Psychic to KO both Ninetales and Arcanine before his Centiskorch comes out. And since Mr. Mime's special attack is so astronomically high for this point in the game, I don't even need to use that Baton Pass and just KO the damn thing with Psychic to win. Not sure if I'm enjoying using regular Mr. Mime more than the Galarian one due to the lack of ice coverage, but hey, it one-shot the Centiskorch, and I wasn't able to do that in the other run, so I'm a happy boy. Not much else before the 4th gym in Stow on side, except for Hop standing right in front of the gym. See, you should have waited until after I fought Allister. Maybe then you would be able to snatch a win from a weakened team? But alas, Hop's lack of killer instinct is his undoing. Just beforehand, though, Meowth evolves into Persian at level 28, so I think I'm going to have the clear advantage with both an effective physical attacker in Linoon and an effective special attacker in Persian. He leads off with a new Pokemon in Cramorant, but that's quad weak to Persian's Thunderbolt, and hilariously enough, I can pretty much blank his entire strategy by alternating Nasty Plot and Substitute, making it so that Dive can never do more than a quarter of Persian's HP, while Leftovers recovers the majority of it, eventually leading to the sweep of Thunderbolt on Cramorant, Uproar on Silicobra, Uproar on Toxel, and of course Uproar on Raboot for the KO and the win. Fun fact, I mistyped Raboot in this script as Rabot, and it made me think of a really cool design for a normal Steel-type rabbit robot, and I think that Pokemon would be really neat. I don't know why, it just seems neat. Allister's just ahead though, and quite frankly, this fight should be a joke. Normal-type Persian with access to Nasty Plot and Shadow Ball, and a newly evolved Configrigus? Yeah, this is a curb stomping. Allister leads Galarian Yamask as I go with Persian and Substitute in order to blank Confuse Ray, doing so effectively and setting up 2 nasty plots under said Substitute in order to take a few Brutal Swings, using the 3rd nasty plot and taking a Brutal Swing before finishing it off with a +6 Shadow Ball. Second is Mimikyu, and Disguise does make this a little brutal, but I figured why not just sit here and set up another Substitute in preparation for his Gigantamax Gengar, and thankfully I do get a turn where he uses Baby Doll Eyes, a priority Fairy-type version of Growl that doesn't do anything in this situation, KOing it with Shadow Ball following a Thunderbolt breaking the Disguise. This leads to Cursula, which is a base 30 speed, so it's outsped and destroyed with Shadow Ball, with the same occurring to Gigantamax Gengar for the swift win. Cat's rule, Ghost's rule, I guess. Coffagrigus notwithstanding. Following the gym, it's time for some K-Kona action against the Monument-destroying Bead. God, that was so bad. He leads off with a Duosion against my Mr. Mime as I'm setting up Light Screen and Calm Mind, due to him only having access to Psychic-type moves. I figured it would be smart to do this, with Baton Pass being able to send over Ponyta and then sweep with Flamethrower, and I'm able to do that very effectively. Bring in Ponyta after 6 Calm Minds, and Flamethrower down Duosion in 1 shot, got Thurita in 2 shots, thanks to Light Screen still being up, but once it fades, down goes it, and then Ponyta is able to finish off his Ponyta and Hattrem to win the fight. That did end up being a little too close for comfort at the end, though. I'm sure I could have played around the Light Screen a little bit more effectively, maybe using Persian in order to sweep with Shadow Ball, but once again, why not a little bit more screen time for some of the other Pokemon? We can't have the same 2 beatdown members performing said beatdowns all the time. 1 Glimwood Tangle later and Gym Challenge, and we've got Opal ready for a fight. And as a Fairy user, I'm a little bit worried about not having any super effective moves outside of the 80% accurate Gunk Shot on Linoon, but by using Mr. Mime and delaying for as many turns as possible by firing off screens and Calm Mind, I'm able to KO both her lead Weezing with Psychic, then get the first 2 questions asked, giving me additional speed and defenses to protect Mr. Mime against Mawil's Crunch, eventually getting the KO with a +4 Psychic on the 7th turn, finally giving me the last question as Togekiss comes in and giving me 2 more stages of special attack, just enough to max out and KO both this Togekiss and her Gigantamax Alchemy with 1 Psychic apiece. I don't know who'd be crazy enough to ask quiz questions in order to boost their opponent's attack stats without any repercussions whatsoever. You'd think that getting it wrong would lower their stats, but I guess if you're 88 years old, you've probably forgotten how to use Pokemon in the first place. Once again, we're to the point that there's only a battle against Hop between gym leaders, this time with an almost entirely new team. He leads Trevenant as I go with Mr. Mime, setting up Iron Defense as I'm surely baiting Shadow Claw here, then doing that once more before going into Persian to set up a Nasty Plot thanks to the Baton Pass carrying over the defense. I meant to hit Substitute first in order to blank Confuse Ray here, then take Horn Leeches through the Substitute and +4 defense that I gained off of Iron Defense, but it honestly doesn't end up mattering because I just power through it and finish setting up my last Nasty Plot, KOing Trevenant with 2 Thunderbolts, then the rest of the team in Cinderace, Snorlax, Heatmore, and Boltund, all with 1 Hyper Voice apiece to win the match. I kind of figured that Hyper Voice would be a better move than Uproar, just so I don't get locked into the same move and can't change it. After all, it's the same base power and still a special normal attack, so why not? 1 game of Chutes and Ladders later, and it's time for the Sirchester gym leader Melony. In Shield version, of course. This game has the better version exclusive Pokemon. She leads off with a Frostmoth against my newly evolved Rapidash, since this should be a clean sweep outside of Lapras without any setup moves. I can just Flare Blitz both Frostmoth and Darmanitan for 1-shots, leading to Ice Cube. Now, I've said this in the first video, but if you hated Mimikyu's Disguise in Gen 7, Ice Cube's Ice Face is basically that but on crack. But then that crack is also on crack. I've got like 5 Pokemon in this team that I am potentially able to set up with, but with Mr. Mime outed effectively due to Freeze Dry freezing Mr. Mime and not thawing it out, then Persian can't stand up to many special attacks due to the setup move of choice being Nasty Plot instead of Calm Mind, which it can't get. Then Linoon ends up not doing well due to being a physical attacker and not having a way to increase its special defense, leaving just Coffagrigus for me to attempt this fight with. But somehow, she also freezes Coffagrigus. And now I'm pooping myself because I have no idea how I'm supposed to get out of this besides a lucky defrost. And exactly that's how this happens, because I am a god gamer, you know? That's just how the meatball luck works. The defrost allows me to set up a ton of Calm Minds and fire off Shadow Ball for the KO, leaving just Lapras, who does outspeed and hits not one but two max geysers, thanks to the super effective Energy Ball not doing enough. But thanks to the special defense gained by our trusty Calm Mind, I'm barely able to make it out with low yellow HP, firing off one last Energy Ball to seal the win without any casualties. That was close. I did not expect this run to have that much more difficulty in comparison to the Galarian forms run, but this battle was probably the turning point where I realized, yeah, I can't just no-brain this video. But the fact that Mr. Mime and Rapidash are the only ones who can get Baton Pass, and Rapidash doesn't get any of the setup moves unlike the wide variety of those that Galarian Rapidash can learn, has really imprinted the fact that these Pokemon have indeed been power crept. But I am appreciating the challenge. I'd much rather have more of it instead of, you know, the entire challenge centralizing around the champion. Following that 6th gym battle is a quick restaurant trip preceded to a battle with Hop, and once again we've got a team change. We're back with Double as the lead, but he's brought back Corviknight after evolving and adding in Pincurchin, so let's see how I fare. He leads Double, so I go Mr. Mime, setting up Reflect as he uses Takedown, so I get up as many Calm Minds as I can, managing to get 3 freebies since he uses Defense Curl like 3 times for some reason. Wearing off my Reflect after a 2nd Takedown, so I set it up once more as he uses a 4th Defense Curl, and I get off a 4th Calm Mind, finally being brought down to low red HP thanks to a 3rd Takedown. This leads me to Baton Pass out into Persian, and it's a pretty effective sweep from here. Hyper Voice on Double, Hyper Voice on Cinderace, then Snorlax comes in and almost wrecks my day by surviving one on red HP because I didn't click Nasty Plot again, and uses Body Slam, but it doesn't paralyze, so I'm able to hit a 2nd, KO, and finish off the rest of the team. Thunderbolt on Corviknight, and Hyper Voice on Pincurchin to win. All that's left before the gym is the battle against Marnie to determine whether I'm worthy of entering Spike Myth to fight Piers. Now this fight is a really big cakewalk though, seeing as Liepard's only attacking move is Sucker Punch, and I can outlast those 5 power points by alternating Calm Mind and Reflect with Mr. Mime to play around Torment, then Baton Pass it all over to Persian for the sweep. Hyper Voice KOs Liepard, though it does outspeed, and I can't break through Torment, so when Scrafty comes in 2nd, I set up Substitute, thankfully seeing the Swagger so I can blank an attack, then KO on the follow-up with Hyper Voice leading to Toxicroak. I've got Thunderbolt still on the moveset, so why not, and sure enough, it KOs, leaving Morpeko to fall to a single, plus 6 Hyper Voice. I'd like to personally tell off the person who designed this fight, since why the heck would you give a Liepard Nasty Plot if the only attacking move it has is Sucker Punch? Clearly someone was falling asleep at the desk because this game was being crunched to heckin' back. One corridor later though, and it's time for Piers, who's not very hard to take down because he doesn't use a Gigantamax or Dynamax whatsoever, and I'm even able to get away with not using very many setup moves. Mr. Mime's able to get Dazzling Gleam here too, so he's a pretty good lead here despite taking neutral damage against Dark types. Scrafty's up first, using a Fake Out and flinching Mr. Mime before I can use Reflect, then a single Calm Mind before seeing Sand Attack. Yeah, this is why Baton Pass strats won't work this time. I can't get rid of the accuracy deprivation, but what I can do is at least get as much off as possible before one Sand Attack comes out here, so I can at least have relatively high accuracy on Dazzling Gleam and just try to get as far through his team as possible. I unfortunately forgot to heal the Dazzling Gleam power points, so I'm only left with 4, but I am able to KO, leading to Obstagoon as it uses Obstruct, a personalized version of Protect, but of course, because I'm -1 accuracy, I have to miss a Dazzling Gleam. This leaves Mr. Mime open to taking a Shadow Claw for a bit of damage, but the Reflect keeps me alive, with the last Dazzling Gleam power point being used to take it out and lead into Malamar. Now, I think Stunfisk hasn't gotten a chance to shine yet, so why not throw it out here? It really does impress here, seeing as his Malamar is immediately paralyzed by Static, allowing for a Thunderbolt, Discharge, and Thunderbolt combination to grab the KO, all while Malamar is completely paralyzed for 2 out of those 3 turns, only hitting a single Night Slash before going down and leading into Skuntank. Now this guy only has Sucker Punch as an offensive move, so I'm staying in and using Mud Shot, getting a critical but barely missing the KO. Barely! as he uses Screech, so I risk staying in on a Sucker Punch, being rewarded by seeing Toxic and KOing with a second Mud Shot to win. Well, that was cool. I'm glad I finally got to use Stunfisk, since Ground Electric is a really neat, powerful type pairing. It's quickly time for Raihan, though. 3 double battles of a gym challenge later, and it's time for a Sand team, leading off with Gigalith and Flygon against my Cofagrigus and Mr. Mime. I'm basically going for a Cofagrigus sweep here by distracting both of his other Pokemon with my other Pokemon, and this works really effectively by baiting Flygon's Steel Wing on the Fairy-type Mr. Mime. So when I switch out, I manage to get a static activation on Flygon because I go into Stunfisk, paralyzing it as well as Gigalith following a body press. Well shoot, both Pokemon are paralyzed, and now I've got the perfect opportunity to finish setting up Iron Defense and Calm Mind with Cofagrigus, outperforming the 5 turns of Sandstorm and allowing for Leftovers recovery to finally start having a positive gain. Getting Cofagrigus back to near full, all while Flygon hits Crunch on Cofagrigus a little while back, giving it Mummy and therefore making it attackable thanks to a lack of Levitate with Stunfisk, so I can further lower its speed with Mudshot. All of this eventually culminates in Cofagrigus finishing the setup as I go into Linoon, taking a Body Press from Gigalith and surviving just barely, triggering my Citrus Berry and finishing both off with Body Slam on Flygon and Energy Ball on Gigalith. Out comes Duraludon and Sandaconda, and I can evade getting attacked this turn by using Dig on Duraludon, then Energy Balling the Sandaconda to get the KO, but this is the end for Linoon. He absorbs an unfortunate Max Knuckle after doing a pretty decently solid chunk of damage for +0 Dig, going down as Cofagrigus keeps laying in with Energy Ball. I knew he wasn't going to last much longer, considering we're getting to the power-crept Pokemon of the late game. After all, he's got a Duraludon, a Flygon, a Gigalith. All of these Pokemon are way stronger than Linoon, so he seemed like the most effective sack to have here, bringing in Persian in order to substitute Duraludon out of the game by attracting Max Knuckle, but being unable to do more than a quarter of my HP at a time, finally ending the 3 turns of Gigantamax and letting Cofagrigus KO with one final Energy Ball. Well, it was unfortunate to lose out on Linoon, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal. I still have Weezing, Slowbro, Slowking, and Corsola as potential usable encounters, so I should be fine. Knock on wood, since we're going into the hardest part of the game in the Champions Cup. 9 fights to go, and straight after Route 10 is the Champion Cup. No time wasted, we're going in by swapping out Cofagrigus and our KO'd Linoon with Weezing and Slowbro. The rest of the team is going to remain the same, but I think everything else is pretty solid going into the cup. Like I said though, 9 more fights, so let's take them out rapid fire style. The first 2 are part of the semi-finals of the Champion Cup, with the first being against Marnie. Now she leads off with Liepard here, and while I did a bunch of preparations to ensure I could do a stat boost sweep here, I completely forgot that Mr. Mime has Soundproof, negating the ability for Liepard to do any damage whatsoever, seeing as its only attack is Snarl. I would have thrown Dazzling Gleam on Mr. Mime and just swept with this guy, but alas, we can just do this with Baton Pass. After setting up 6 Calm Minds through Torment, alternating with the likes of Light Screen and Reflect, I'm able to Baton Pass all of it over to Persian, going in and just pounding it out with Hyper Voice, one-shotting Liepard after taking a Snarl, Scrafty, Toxicroak after taking a Sucker Punch, then using a nasty plot against Morpeko to get back that single stage of special attack lost from Snarl, then finishing it off with Hyper Voice and doing the same to Gigantamax Grimmsnarl with Thunderbolt, since of course that single turn against Morpeko led to a Torment. Thankfully I got a critical just in case the non-stab Thunderbolt wouldn't do enough. Second is Hop, and his team is basically the same as our last fight, as he leads here with Double as I go with Weezing. Of course, with Double being a physical attacker, it only makes sense to use Will-O-Wisp to have the damage that he can yield out. From here, I can just swap to Mr. Mime, and thanks to the held item being received from the Digging Duo in the Wild area, that being the Light Clay, I'm able to extend my screen duration from 5 turns to 8. Though that's not as relevant here, since I'm just aiming to get 3 Iron Defenses and 6 Calm Minds up to Baton Pass over to my next Pokemon. Though paralysis from Body Slam as well as a critical hit means that I can only get off 2 Calm Minds, though the Iron Defenses do manage to make the cut before said Baton Pass happens over to Persian. Nasty Plot is used twice after Double uses Cotton Guard and Body Slam, thankfully without paralysis, and it's enough for me to one-shot the entire team. Hyper Voice on Double, Hyper Voice on Snorlax, Hyper Voice on Pincurchin, Thunderbolt on Corviknight to change things up, and Hyper Voice on his Dynamax Cinderace to KO and win. And that's the semifinals. Time to take care of Oleana to continue with the finals. She's got a nice diverse team of 5 Mons, but because of the increase in level cap, it's not quite strong enough, as I lead Weezing against Frostlass, using a combo of Poison Gas and 2 Venom Drenches, seeing as she's a special attacker, so Will-O-Wisp just won't work here. I'm barely able to hold on for both of them, seeing as Hex does double damage after Weezing is burned, but I can just swap into Rapidash, meaning that both Icy Wind and Will-O-Wisp will do next to nothing because it's a fire type. Top it all off with Oleana's AI for some reason prioritizing Icy Wind to lower Rapidash's speed, and the fact that I can abuse that by using several points of agility, essentially negating any and all damage with the leftovers held item, and setting up 3 Swords Dances and performing the sweep from there. Poison just straight up KOs Frostlass by the end. Poison Jab on Milotic, Flare Blitz on Salazzle. There wasn't any chance of me fitting a single neutral move on her for this moveset. And then Poison Jab on Serena, leaving just the Gigantamax Garbodor to get rammed into by a +6 stab Flare Blitz for the KO and the win. Big pile of garbage has nothing on a big pile of Unga Bunga beatdown strats, that's for sure. Back to Winden Stadium we go for the finals, but Bede is inhibiting our single elim bracket of 8 as he's requesting some Unga Bunga beatdown of his own, so we oblige with his fair share. Thanks to his lead Mawile and having nothing but physical attacks, we're leading Weezing with Will-O-Wisp here, then swapping out into Mr. Mime to set up exactly 1 Iron Defense before being brought to red HP off of Iron Head, baton passing out into Rapidash in order to set up 3 Swords Dances and an Agility so that we can ensure that we outspeed all of his team, then proceed to sweep with Flare Blitz on Mawile for super effective damage, and then Poison Jab to hit Gardevoir, Galarian Rapidash, and his Gigantamax Hatterene with also super effective attacks, while also resisting any potential fairy move that could come my way thanks to being fire type, winning the match in pretty quick and effective fashion and keeping the show on schedule. First round of the 8-person bracket ends up being against Nessa. She's leading Golisopod, so I gotta watch out for First Impression as I lead Weezing, since it's a physical attacker. Thankfully though, she doesn't go for First Impression as I go for Will-O-Wisp, instead going straight for Liquidation as I swap into Mr. Mime and take a second one for less than half. I'm going to try to get as many up of Iron Defense before Baton Pass as possible here, as Golisopod has Swords Dance, and countering that with Iron Defense seems like my only option in order to set up effectively. Mr. Mime manages to stick around through 2 Shadow Claws, and sets up all 3 before Baton passing out into Persian, taking the Shadow Claw for no damage due to the normal type immunity, and giving me the perfect opportunity to set up 1 Nasty Plot. I can't do any more though, because Golisopod will be taken below half with the burn and it will trigger emergency exit, so by putting a stop to that with Thunderbolt means that I won't have to deal with a potential First Impression later as Seeking comes out second. She's kind of resigned to her fate at this point though, so I just set up 2 more Nasty Plots, with her wasting time with an Aqua Ring and a non-stab Mega Horn that doesn't even do a quarter, going down to Thunderbolt, as does Barraskewda, Pelipper, and her Gigantamax Dreadnought to end it quickly. I guess some people just never learn. You're on the receiving end of an Unga Bunga beatdown and you're like, surely it won't happen again, right? And then you get punched in the face for the second time in a best of 3 and walk away from the table laughing maniacally as you have one bad day. Speaking of one bad day, Allister, the invoker of my Joker arc, is here and ready to get curb stomped, as we're once again facing off with a physical lead Dusknoir, while Weezing is ready and willing to burn with Will-O-Wisp. The only problem facing me here is Dusknoir's Rock Tomb, as it's A, bad for Baton Pass strats as it lowers speed and forces me to take a move slot from Rapidash, leading into B, it could become a disaster if a critical hit comes through with the move on said Rapidash and doing super effective damage. Thankfully though, that critical instead comes rather early on Mr. Mime, though not before 3 Iron Defenses are set up, Baton passing to Rapidash and allowing me to start just alternating Swords Dance and Agility. I know he's got Disable, so I want to play around that as much as possible by using Swords Dance first, but I'm able to get off 2 of them as he keeps going for Rock Tomb, so I swap over to Agility and then back to Swords Dance, but He's just going for Rock Tomb because he's prioritizing getting my speed down below Dusknoir's. If he's able to do that, he'll move to Shadow Punch, which I noticed as I went for Agility the one time. And it's made me realize that this game has an AI that prioritizes this. I've seen it with Melony's Frostmoth in the 6th gym, Oleana's Frostlass just a few fights ago, and now Allister's Dusknoir. I would love to see if there was some in-depth explanation of the AI's code in like a video or something to tell what functions are supposed to happen in what order, because this is a very interesting quirk that I wouldn't necessarily say is bad, but it's also not good because it can't adapt. Anyway, eventually I do set up like 7 or 8 agilities in order to get around the amount of speed drops that have been suffered across the fight without a single disable happening, and allowing for me to sweep with a mixture of high horsepower on Dusknoir, high horsepower on Cursula, same with Chandelure, Poltegeist, and finally his Gigantamax Gengar, finishing the battle rather smoothly. It is kind of funny how 80% of these battles is just clicking setup buttons until you're bored, and the other 20% is just starting to click the KO buttons. Though it does make these fights murder on the eyes when it comes to trying to fit the whole fight on screen without making any cuts. I'm sure Nick the editor can attest to that, can't you? And this was the reason that he asked me if he could start cutting in the middle of battles. Now, if you do accuse me of cheating, I will have to send you a strongly worded email, and you're not gonna want that. Okay, enough trying to be funny. It's time for the third and final round of the finals bracket to get to Leon, and it's against Raihan and his Sun team. He's leading Torkoal, as I'm going with Mr. Mime, as I want to set up Light Screen as fast as possible, seeing Yawn, then setting up Reflect, and falling asleep as Solar Beam lands. Not at all a big deal though, this is all Mr. Mime's being used for, and holding the Light Clay in order to extend these screens, as we are going to swap into Weezing here and use Venom Drench strats. Taunt makes sure he can't use Yawn, then I go for Poison Gas, landing, and then Venom Drenching not once, not twice, but 3 times before Weezing's just too weak to continue. This should be more than enough. I use one more taunt to prevent Yawn from coming out as I go into Rapidash and use Sword Stance, taking Body Press for nearly half, then using Swords one more time as he goes for a full restore. Yeah, the first trainer that uses items is the third to last boss in the game. And perfect timing too, as I get that second free Sword Stance and KO with high horsepower following it. Second out is Flygon, going down to a +4 stab, albeit not very effective Flare Blitz. Then Goodra comes in and gets donked with a high horsepower. Fourth out is Turtonator, and I'm not taking the risk of getting hit with Dragon Pulse. Instead, I'm going straight for the high horsepower to get the KO, leaving just Duraludon. And to my shock, even through Gigantamax, I don't have to be at +6 in order to KO with a super effective physical move. Instead, it's enough at +4, one-shotting after outspeeding with high horsepower to quickly finish off Raihan. We're quickly approaching the end, but we've got the Darkest Detour to take care of first. Rose is a Steel-type user, however we've got plenty of firepower behind us, as Weezing and Slowbro can both learn Flamethrower, while Rapidash maintains Flare Blitz, so we should be in great shape. Rose leads off with Escavalier, a partial bug type, meaning that Weezing can easily outspeed and utterly destroy it with a single flamethrower. I think that's the first and only time that I've ever seen a Weezing outspeed and one-shot anything, but I'll take it as Klingklang comes in second, uses Wild Charge twice after outspeeding, but it's not enough to make a major dent in Weezing, only doing a collective third as I get the KO with 2 flamethrowers, leading to Berserker. Now, I'm considering doing the mid-game sweep here, and I'm gonna follow through on that by using Will-O-Wisp with Weezing, then swapping out into Stunfisk because I wanted to get Stunfisk on screen, mostly just to check on what move he'd go for next. It's a second Screech. So I swap once more into Rapidash to take a Throat Chop for around a quarter, starting to set up Sword Stance as Screech hits, getting off 2 swords before Throat Chop starts doing a little bit too much damage. Thankfully, it's just enough for me to get the third and final Sword Stance off, leaving Rapidash with just 29 HP after leftovers, but plenty enough for KOing Berserker with high horsepower. Same to Ferrothorn, surviving through the Iron Barbs as his Gigantamax Caparajah hits the field, and a super effective +6 high horsepower, despite not being stab, unlike Flare Blitz, manages to still get the KO without having to KO myself on recoil damage. This leaves my full team to help me catch Eternatus and head into the final climactic battle against Leon. Now, while his lead Aegislash was much more difficult to take care of in the first run with the Galarian forms, this is actually made much easier thanks to Stunfisk of all things. Unova Stunfisk gets Eerie Impulse, an electric-type special version of Charm and Feather Dance, so I can use 3 of these, just take attacks since Stunfisk is a bulky son of a... I'm not allowed to curse on this channel, then fire off a Thunder Wave in order to prevent Aegislash from even doing minimal damage with those Shadow Balls and Flash Cannons. Thank you Rotom Rally for that TM, time well spent. Now I can swap into Mr. Mime, take Flash Cannon and Shadow Ball pretty effectively and set up screens, while also getting up 3 Iron Defenses, putting up plenty of armor against his Bloodthirsty Blade before Baton passing. And, you know what? Screw it. Let's go for Slowbro. We haven't given Slowbro enough screen time, so let's let him finish this out. I've got Scald and Flamethrower. Unfortunately, I didn't keep Stored Power. Probably should have replaced Yawn, because this would have been a pretty easy fight, as Stored Power would likely be a 200 power Psychic move by this point after using all of the Calm Minds I need to, and all of the boosts from Iron Defense, but I digress. Eventually, I'm able to set up all 6 Calm Minds without Slowbro breaking a sweat, no criticals whatsoever, leaving Aegislash to eventually fall to a Flamethrower as the team starts to crumble beneath the might of the literal king of Oonga Boonga. Actually, Slow King is the literal king of Oonga Boonga, so we'll call this one the Oonga Boonga Bro. Oonga Boonga Bro here is able to walk through Rhyperior with Scald after taking Stone Edge for pity damage, Scald on Dragapult after taking a super effective Shadow Ball for less than a quarter. That's not very effective, by the way, but still one-shots. That's just the sheer power of a Slowbro. Flamethrower on Rillaboom after wasting his one and only turn on a useless endeavor at full HP. Good brain. Good play. Yep, good play. Scald on Haxorus after an attempted Outrage. Sorry, buddy, Iron Defense is not budging here, leaving just Charizard, and after threatening the Gigantamax form, it goes down to a single super effective Scald because it's not Mega Charizard X and does not lose the weakness to water. It does hit a max overgrowth for the most damage anything's managed to deal so far in this fight, but it doesn't really matter, as it's KO'd, and I get the title of Galar Champion with, foreign forms? I still don't know what the best way of describing these is yet. With that though, that's another story closed and shut for the Meatball Man, and I appreciate you guys checking out this 2-parter. Make sure to like this video if you haven't already, and definitely make sure to leave a comment below, asking for any potential interesting ideas you have in terms of runs. I would love to do more of these paired up runs with my own channel in the future. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see y'all next time.